Hey everybody, Markkesack here. I'm going to be giving you guys a review or perhaps my opinion on the controversy surrounding Frederick Flips, the Olympian, the NCAA Division I men's gymnastics, University of Michigan gymnast. He debuted a new uniform. If you guys haven't seen it, I'll pop some pictures of it before. This is more for the gymnastics world, but anybody that likes to perhaps hear about it, you can watch the video. But this is more for the gymnastics world of things because it is a change. It is a change in the uniform. It's a very perhaps controversial topic about changing the uniform for men's and women's gymnastics. For the men's side, I guess perhaps Fred wants to be comfortable in his own skin when he competes, which I think is completely fair in a sense because some of these skills are extremely dangerous. Some of these skills have killed gymnasts in the past. What I believe Fred is trying to do in changing gymnastics around the uniform, the men's uniform, is he just wanted to feel a lot more comfortable while competing. He wanted to feel comfortable with himself while doing gymnastics because it is a hard sport. Perhaps, in my opinion, one of the hardest sports in the world. This sport has killed people. It has paralyzed people. It has changed people's lives. And so I think, in my opinion, if you want to feel perhaps more comfortable doing the sport, maybe that's not such a bad thing. Maybe for Fred, wearing this new uniform gives him some sort of psychological edge in his mind, feeling, because he stated in his video he felt really constricted with all the muscles he had in his body, and the uniform didn't allow him perhaps to compete to his full ability. And when in gymnastics, any good coach will tell you if your mind's not in it, if your heart's not in it, if your gut's not in it, then don't go for the skill because you could get hurt. So perhaps now him wearing this new uniform, he has now allowed himself this psychological edge of comfortability in his mind, which will allow him to compete at his best. Perhaps now maybe he feels invincible wearing it. Perhaps now he feels faster, better, stronger, the best gymnast he can be in his life because he's wearing this new uniform. He's changing the game in his own way. And I'm interested to see how the judges are going to react because there is a rule in men's gymnastics currently where if you do not wear the traditional uniform, the step-in with the short shorts and the pommel pants, that you can get a 3/10 deduction on every event you compete. So if Fred competes 6 events, he gets 1.8 off for that whole meet while wearing the uniform. And if the judge is feeling kind of slightly petty perhaps in certain things, the judge might say, you know what, I'm going to take off a whole point because your uniform didn't allow me to judge you correctly, when maybe it didn't, but the judge perhaps might want to keep that tradition of gymnastics alive. I don't think it's such a bad thing that you want to feel, again, comfortable in your own skin when doing this sport because, people have died doing certain skills. They banned all the rollouts in 2016 in gymnastics. I'll put up a video of me doing a rollout, the Thomas Salto. This skill has killed gymnasts in the past, and so they changed that rule because they wanted to keep gymnasts safe. So maybe perhaps Fred having this new uniform, maybe he might feel safer to do gymnastics. And I don't know if the USAG would want to argue against the fact of, well, we want to keep our gymnasts safe, which is a big priority for them. Big priority for them. Just recently, I think in New Zealand, they pass some sort of rule or something for the women's side of gymnastics where the women were now allowed to wear shorts over their uniform because I believe what New Zealand was trying to do was, one, stop the over-sexualization of women's gymnastics in the sport. Two, I believe they wanted to make the women feel more comfortable while they competed, more comfortable in their own skin, perhaps made them feel a lot more safer when competing. So if you're going to do that for one side, perhaps maybe you should do it for the other, allowing the option to say, hey, if the men want to wear this uniform and, it's not as tight, but the judges are still allowed to see everything correctly, then perhaps they should do that. Perhaps they give the male gymnast that option of wearing certain uniforms where, there'd have to be like rules and whatever and stuff. They argue that, but I think if they were to give them option, like, hey, you could wear the traditional men's gymnastics uniform, or you could wear this uniform, which is a little bit, not as constricting your muscles and constricting whatever, and the judge can still see what he needs to see and judge it correctly and fairly, then perhaps I say they go for that. They did it for the women's side. I don't see such a bad thing for doing it for the men's side. But then I will, however, if you're going to argue for one side, you have to argue for the other. The other side of the coin is that, yes, Fred is breaking a rule, and he admitted that. He said he is breaking a rule. He will get deducted 3/10 or whatever, deducted on every event he competes. And so any gym that kind of looks up to Fred, any gymnast, young little kid gymnast that looks up to Fred, that gymnast might think, hey, he broke a rule. I don't have to listen to it. You know, if my coach is saying these rules, but I think back, oh, that Olympian, that Frederick Richards, Fred Flips, he broke this rule, so I don't have to listen to this. I don't have to listen to my coach, you know, because perhaps maybe Fred, I don't know, maybe Fred was advised, hey, maybe don't do this because you get deducted, and Fred was like, no, I'm going for it. I'm going to change the game, and maybe that kid looks at Fred and thinks he broke a rule. I want to break this rule too, and maybe he gets hurt doing gymnastics because the coach said, no, don't do this, you're not ready, and that kid thought, oh, he's an Olympian, he broke this rule. I don't care what my coach says, and it's a very interesting line to look at, you know. I think some of maybe the older coaches and the older judges might be feeling some type of way about how Fred is breaking this rule, and there's this long line of tradition of gymnastics. Gymnastics has been in the Olympics since 1896. It's perhaps the tradition of wearing the uniform that you like, that coaches want to see, the judges want to see. Although I will say, I don't know if there has ever been a sport where the uniform hasn't changed throughout the years, because you could go back in time and look it up and think, let me look at baseball uniforms from 100 years ago versus now, and they are different. They are different. They're perhaps modernized, and so maybe Frederick is trying to modernize the uniform of gymnastics, because I do understand the other side of the aspect of, yes, growing up, I was called all those kind of, I guess, bad things growing up, saying like, oh, you do a girl sport, oh, you look funny wearing this stuff, you look this kind of way, you look that kind of way. It never really bothered me because I didn't care at the time, and I still don't care what anybody says. I can do a triple back and they can't. I can fly and they can't, so it never really bothered me. It's more of their own problem feeling whatever way they want to feel. So maybe Fred was tired of hearing all this stuff and was like, you know what, I want to feel comfortable when I do the sport. I want to feel stronger. I want to feel smarter. I want to feel better. And perhaps, I mean, who's to deny him of saying that? Who's to deny him of, you want to feel this way in the sport? You want to change the game? Who's to deny that? Because there has never been a moment where somebody says you cannot do this certain skill before doing it. Nobody has ever said you cannot do a quadruple back off floor before doing it. Maybe someday somebody will do that on floor, and perhaps it might get banned, but perhaps somebody will do that on floor, and perhaps it might get banned, perhaps it won't, but you won't know until after it's been done. So I don't know if they're going to let this slide. I don't know if they're going to actually put a ban on this uniform. I don't know if they're going to allow the option of men's to wear this like they did for women's. I really don't know. But it is an interesting thing to look at. I applaud Fred for his bravery and his creativity to change the game of gymnastics. I watched him compete at Winter Cup wearing that uniform. I thought he looked good. I thought his gymnastics looked fine. And I could see Fred was having the time of his life, you know. He probably finally felt like himself in the sport of gymnastics, because this sport is mentally tough and it does take a lot from you. So who's to say that you won't want to put something in the sport and kind of leave it all there, all on the stage of gymnastics. And I think it's important for Fred that he gets to do that. We will have to see what Frederick Richards does in the sport of gymnastics continuing forward after competing and debuting his new uniform. I wanted to post this video because I was curious, because I didn't know if there were people out there that agree with me, that disagreed with me, if they think that he should be doing this, if he shouldn't be doing this, but it does bring the attention to that sport of gymnastics and male gymnastics. If you did end up enjoying the video, please subscribe. You don't know how much it means to me yet. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.